This is the Cancer Interviews podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Bruce Morton. The majority of our guests on Cancer Interviews are cancer survivors, and we have learned just how daunting their journeys can be. But there is also a formidable set of challenges for those who spearhead the care for those diagnosed. Our guest on this episode has been the primary caregiver for her husband who is diagnosed with kidney cancer. She is Nicole Scott of Circleville, Ohio, and now's the time to hear her story. So, Nicole, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
First thing we like to do is just learn a little bit more about you, your life away from cancer. If you would tell us a bit about where you're from, what you've done for work, and what you like to do for fun.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm from Circleville, Ohio, the home of Pumpkin Show. A lot of people know us for that. Otherwise, we're just south of Columbus. It's a small town. For a living, I actually work for Ohio Health. I work as an office specialist. Before that, I was a stay-at-home mom. We have a son who is 22 years old, married, and I have a grandson. So for my free time, I love to read. Of course, I do a lot of volunteer work, go to church, and spend time with the family.
Okay, now your husband is Keith, and he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. When did Keith first notice something wrong?
So he had actually noticed something wrong. He was diagnosed in 2023, but a couple years before that, he would have occasional side pain that would radiate to the groin area. His job's very physical, so he thought it was muscular. It presented itself as that because it would come and go. It was very random. You couldn't find a pattern to it. But then probably about April of 2023, it became more persistent. I had a hard time talking Keith into going to the doctor because he also works for the hospital. He is very well known. That was embarrassing to him. So I talked him into scheduling an appointment. It was for a Friday. And really that was the only symptom he had, was just the side pain that would radiate into the groin that got closer and closer together until it was consistent.
And what is the exact name of his diagnosis? In other words, kidney cancer is kind of a simplistic name for it, but what was the exact name of the diagnosis, and what was the chain of events that led to his being diagnosed?
Yes, so he is stage 1, or he was stage 1 papillary renal cell carcinoma, grade 2. What led to the events was the persistency of the pain. It was getting closer and closer together. It was turned from, every occasional to every single day and became debilitating. So he had scheduled an appointment for Friday. I came home on the Wednesday before that Friday on May 10th, and I noticed that he had a difficult time just bending over to pick something up. He had winced, and so I started questioning him about it again. And I told him, I can't go to bed knowing that you're in that much pain. He's not a complainer about pain. So he said, we really need to go to the emergency room. I talked him into that. And then when we went, the ER physician said, I think you might have a hernia. So he said, we're going to do a quick CAT scan and get you out of here. And so he did a CAT scan, and it seemed like time stopped. Everything had worked really quickly, and then everything just got very slow, to the point we were getting kind of like annoyed, like, what in the world is taking so long? We want to go home, it's late. And then the doctor come in, and he sat down. I could tell he was serious. And then he said, you have a renal mass that we're pretty sure is kidney cancer. And that started our journey.
By the way, we're confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools to help you through your personal cancer journey or caregiving journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or review below, and share this story with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time we post an interview. And we want to remind you that on Cancer Interviews, we are not distributors of medical advice. If you seek medical advice, please contact a licensed healthcare professional. So at this point, Nicole, Keith had been diagnosed And once that happened, by way of caregiving, what did you find yourself doing?
Initially, complete and absolute devastation. That is the last thing that either of us would have ever thought. When we were in the emergency room and they told him that, I was stunned, speechless. Usually I'm the question asker. I couldn't say a single word. I found myself trying to gather stuff really quickly just to get out of that hospital because we knew everybody. And I knew that once I made it out to the car, I would begin just sobbing. Keith was very quiet. He didn't really say anything. He just kept looking over at me. And then he actually helped me walk out to the car. And then once we got to the car, I started sobbing like I've never cried before. And I started calling my family.
And the whole notion of caregiving is a skill, as I'm sure you've now learned. But at that point, you hadn't given a thought to caregiving and you probably had no experience at it. How difficult was it to cross into that zone when you had no realm of experience to fall back on?
So, that type of caregiving was very difficult because in the moment, because you're in a state of shock and devastated yourself. Obviously, Keith was devastated, but in a different way than I was. And to also just see him go through that was very difficult. I will tell you that after about 3 days of crying and pure devastation, then I was like, okay, this is a terrible situation I can't control, but I can control how I respond to it and what I do to help him get through it. And then that started a campaign of me just trying to get the word out and doing a lot of stuff to get awareness out that Keith had this and for people to start praying for him.
Two-part question, Nicole. And to some degree, you've answered it because you've talked about the initial reaction to Keith's diagnosis. But I want to talk about the juncture in which you got past that and we're starting to look this task squarely in the eye. Two-part question. First off, what did the emotional component of support consist of? Again, once you got past the initial reaction, how difficult was it emotionally?
It's very difficult emotionally. There's depression, there's fear. The fear is terrible of the what ifs. We knew nothing about kidney cancer when he was first diagnosed. So of course your mind immediately goes to he's going to pass away or die. He's not going to live. It was very difficult because you're also trying to encourage this person that you love. And you don't want them to feel hopeless or to give up. And that was really a driving force for me to change how I was dealing with it.
Now, the second part of this two-part question is something that differs from caregiver to caregiver, diagnosis to diagnosis. But did you find yourself in a position of caregiver, exclusive of the emotional piece, did you find yourself becoming a de facto nurse? Were there physical things that you had to do to aid with Keith's care?
Absolutely, especially after he had his partial nephrectomy. But of course, I helped him set, with his appointments. He still continued to work full time. So he had to get, MRIs done, a lot of testing, pre-admission testing done, all of those things. So I really helped him to coordinate that. And then obviously after his surgery, I had to do a lot of care for him.
And out of all that, the emotional and the physical part, what was the toughest part of your caregiving journey?
For me, the emotional, I'm a doer. So kicking into action is just very natural for me. And, I come from a long line of people in the medical field. So that was just came very naturally to me. The emotional aspect, I didn't realize it would be so difficult and honestly so long lasting to work through.
Now I'm going to trot out a term that I'm sure you know all about, you know more about than you would like now, but at the outset, you didn't know anything about it. And that's caregiver burnout. Did you find yourself approaching caregiver burnout, or was a metaphoric line crossed and you were really experiencing caregiver burnout?
I can't say that I completely, went into caregiver burnout other than at times pure exhaustion, which I guess we could call caregiver burnout. And when that happens, it is very difficult because you are needed. And, I always try to focus on who am I caregiving for. When that happens to me, I remember I am doing this for the love of my life. Like, he's not a number, he's not a statistic, he's not another test result. And he's worth all of this. And when I can change my focus and focus on why am I really doing this, it really helps me through those difficult times of caregiving.
Now, Keith has achieved survivorship, and I suspect en route to achieving survivorship, the two of you reached a point in which it looked like you were turning a corner, that you were getting an upper hand on the cancer. Once that happened, how exciting was that?
It was so exciting. I actually have a video that I took of him walking out of the hospital. When he had his partial nephrectomy, it was only supposed to be an overnight stay. He ended up being there for almost a week due to complications. And to watch him walk out that door and have a smile and give me a thumbs up was really the best feeling in the world.
Now, I suspect that you received some care from some friends in Circleville, a nearby family and friends, but another source of possible support for you could be a national organization, the Kidney Cancer Association. If you would, tell us a bit about the Kidney Cancer Association, what it did for you and what it can do for others.
Yes, I am so proud of the fact that I partner with the Kidney Cancer Association. Shortly after Keith had went through his cancer battle, we started our own charity. When we started that charity, I had called the Kidney Cancer Association and asked them for pamphlets and information that I could get out to spread awareness in our area. They immediately gave me everything I needed and more. They educated me, and they have supported my awareness and different things here in our community to get awareness out. Their website is absolutely amazing. There are so many patient and caregiver tools that is on the website. You can also call. They have patient navigators that can help you find a provider in your area that meets their standards. And we also, I work for them to do fundraising and advocacy. So I'm working on their council, where we're kind of that middle person between patients and caregivers and the Kidney Cancer Association, because they really do care about what the patient's needs and the caregiver needs are, and they want to supply that.
You mentioned the website. Do you have that website address?
Yeah, it's just kidneycancer.com or kidneycancer.org. They're on Facebook. You can find them at their actual webpage, and they are on Instagram.
Our guest is Nicole Scott of Circleville, Ohio. She was the caregiver for her husband, Keith, who was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And Nicole, we're going to wrap up right about now, but I want to ask you a very important question, because you have knowledge now that you did not have when Keith was first diagnosed. And there may be people watching now who suddenly find themselves in the role of caregiver for somebody with kidney cancer or some other type of cancer, and they're in the position you were in when Keith was first diagnosed. But you have this knowledge now. If there's any advice that you're going to give someone who suddenly finds themselves in the role of caregiver for somebody with kidney cancer or any other kind of cancer, what advice would that be?
My advice definitely would be that when you hear those words, don't give up hope. Don't think it is hopeless. It does not have to be a death sentence. There is so much out there now. The treatments are amazing, and we're always getting new treatments. It's very easy to focus on that aspect of cancer. And I just really want to encourage everyone that it is not hopeless. They have options. And also, as a caregiver, just to keep focused on the person and the task at hand. When you get lost in being exhausted and test results and all of those things, that's really when the caregiver fatigue comes in and discouragement. And just remember that, that you're doing this for a good reason and it's somebody you love. And also just taking care of yourself. You can't take care of someone else if you're not taking care of yourself. It's not selfish to have a friend or somebody that you counsel with to help you work through it. It's not selfish for you to need to go to a doctor's appointment or to have a lunch date out. Those are not selfish things. They're actually going to help you to be a better caregiver.
Outstanding. Nicole Scott, Circleville, Ohio, thank you very much for sharing a story that is going to be a wealth of information for anybody who finds themselves in the caregiver role. So, Nicole, thanks so much for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that's going to wrap up this episode of Cancer Interviews. And we want to remind you, as we always do when we conclude, that if you are on a cancer journey as a patient or as a caregiver, you are not alone. There are people out there like Nicole Scott. There are organizations like the Kidney Cancer Association that can be of tremendous assistance. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.